Most Americans, it will be a day that will live in infamy and one that will not soon be forgotten, as many remember exactly where they were and what they were doing when they learned of that tragedy.
Well, for American Muslims, the years since 9/11 have been one of profound change. Joining us now to talk much more about that change is Hassan Shibly, the Executive Director of Tampa Council on American Islamic Relations. Thank you so much for being here. First off, before we talk about September 11th, your organization has come into the spotlight today, and actually you as well for speaking to a local high school. There are people who are protesting the Hillsborough County School Board saying that only certain speakers should be allowed to talk, and they actually said that your organization is linked to terrorism. How do you respond?
Well, that's completely unfounded. I mean, if we had any connection to terrorism, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. Our message is one that goes against extremists, Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists, who are both promoting this idea that you can't be a good American and a good Muslim. And we're saying no, that nothing stops a good Muslim from being a good American. In fact, being a good Muslim helps you be a better American. Being a good American makes you a better Muslim. And that's the message that they're so afraid of. Of course, when we spoke at that school, really, we were just trying to clear the misconceptions that are out there, because unfortunately, misconceptions lead to fear, that leads to hatred, that often leads to violence. And that's why our organization has been targeted by both Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists. And about the protesters today, I will say that it's a great shame that they're desecrating the memory of that tragic day by using it to promote fear and hatred to advance their political ambitions at a time when our country really needs to stand united.
And you were telling me earlier that you say your organization is actually trying to help a community heal. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Today we're engaging in an interfaith vigil on a small scale right at the University of Tampa, but generally our organization is working to protect the civil rights, to protect the Constitution, which makes America so great, to help people recognize that we have a lot more in common than that which divides us, and fear and hatred is our worst enemy. Our enemies can't take away our freedoms and our principles. They can't divide us. We can only do that when we let our lives be controlled by fear and hatred.
A study that came out last year talked about how 50% of Americans, when they take a look at American values, they don't think that they can work in conjunction with the Muslim faith. What do you say to that?
Well, I think they'll be shocked to really realize that if you study, for example, Thomas Jefferson, where did he get the idea of freedom of religion? They didn't get that from Europe. He got that from the Quran, which he had in his library, and from the Muslim tradition, which has the values like freedom of religion, freedom of speech. That's where we got many of our principles from as Americans, and people are shocked to hear that.
Yes, because we don't see that in other Muslim-dominated countries.
Right.
You don't see that freedom of speech being tolerated.
But we see that the people in those Muslim-dominated countries are dying to get the very same freedoms that we often take for granted. And that's why I'm very sad when people question our loyalty or question our dedication to freedom and justice. When I have cousins in Syria that are being killed and shot because they want the very same freedoms that we take for granted. And that's why I've committed my life to protecting the Bill of Rights for all Americans and all people.
All right. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Reg.